Okay, welcome to first, I guess, developer blog for the Fallout 4 mod I am working on, which for the moment is simply titling Munitions Receiver Conversions. And the idea behind this mod, implement all the new ammos and stuff from the Munitions mod to vanilla weapons in a way that doesn't necessarily add another layer of complexity to the game, but adds more complexity to the layers that exist. Because what I've done in the past for my own personal load orders is, for like caliber conversions, is I'll add an extra category in the weapons workbench for caliber conversion. But this time around, what I'm doing is something a little bit different. Instead, essentially rechambering the receiver upgrades to make use of the munitions calibers. And part of the reason I'm doing this is to ensure compatibility with mods like the Jenner Dax's upcoming attachment pack, because he also adds like a few additional receivers for some of the weapons that do some new things. So I guess since we're here on the revolver, let's discuss what I've done. Normally in the vanilla game, this gun only has 4 receivers: standard, hardened, powerful, and advanced. I've added back the missing sort of receiver variants. So you have the calibrated, powerful, tuned, heavy frame, light frame. Those are all there. And then the caliber conversions, like the armor piercing, hair trigger, those use 357 instead of 44. So there's a little bit more variety there. So you'll actually find these revolvers chambered for 357 in the early game. On top of that, I'm adding more receiver upgrades with some more unique things, like the super light frame receiver to rechamber it to 38. I think I had ultra light frame for 32, which does half as much damage as like the standard 44. And then the snake shot receiver, which rechambers it to 410 bore. As you can see, it makes the whole cylinder longer to fit the 410 shot shells in there. And it is, it is correct in showing the shot shells being loaded in there with the reload animation. And then there's also the 4570 ultra heavy frame. It does double the damage of the standard receiver, but it's much heavier and much slower in exchange for the big damage. And then if you have Munitions additional ammos mod also installed, I will have an add-on for this that makes use of some of the MAA ammos, like the 45 long Colt. We got 45 long Colt receiver options, and then there's a 3030 super heavy frame receiver, which slightly less damage than the 4570, but a little bit better range, and it adds like plus 30% crit damage. So if you're a VATS user, that'll probably be a decent option for you. Pipe guns. Pipe guns are fun because I've added a lot. Well, I've added a fair bit. There's a lot of different stuff. We got the 22 light rapid automatic receiver. It does very, very small damage, but fires lots of little bullets very, very fast. Then you got your super light frame, barely any better damage. 30 carbine. As you can see, the barrel changed. I have actually gone through, let's just scroll through some of these real quick, and you'll see that there's a couple different mesh edits for the receivers on the pipe guns. The pipe gun, the pipe bolt action, the bolt gun, the same treatment. So some of these will have, slightly different variants to give a little bit more visual variety to the pipe guns. And as you can see here, all the different rechambers, different receivers have different ammo. Armor piercing using 6.5, the hardened armor piercing using the 7.62 Tokarev. I might add a powerful armor piercing receiver chambered in 5.7 when Munitions 1.2 comes out, because that's one of the new ammos coming in that. There's also some ammos in here from Munitions additional ammos, I think. think I had a 45 Colt receiver for this in here somewhere. Oh yeah, you can rechamber to 44, 357 with the Magnum receivers. Those are only available in semi-automatic. You can't do automatic with those, just because it's all about, you know, high damage output. And I might need to buff the damage a bit more on those, because honestly, that's still incredibly weak compared to other guns using those same ammos. Although if you're using true damage, then it'll probably balance a lot of that out anyways. The pipe bolt action, because the pipe bolt action has another interesting thing with the buckshot receiver for 20 gauge, and I did modify the receiver mesh so it does actually show the shotgun rounds being loaded in there with the reload animation. And on top of that, a lot of these rechambers is pretty much in line with the rechambers done to the standard hunting rifle. As you can see, the different mesh variants. But the hunting rifle also did get a few unique things. As you can see, the 50 caliber ultra heavy frame receiver I have on here, you know, adds this big old heavy thing on there. I don't really recommend using that with the short stock, because it's longer than the short stock, especially if you put like the short barrel on there. Like, we put the standard short barrel on there and the short stock, it actually sticks out beyond the barrel. It does technically function, but that 50 cal does come with some big recoil, and there's like a little hole here, which is normally covered up by the barrel, but you will see the gap on the end of that if you do that. So I definitely recommend keeping the full stock on there at the very least, especially if you're going with the 50 cal. You definitely want that 5mm ultralight frame receiver, and because you'll get a bunch of 5mm in the vanilla game, because that's what the minigun uses, so you get a crap ton of it pretty early on. So I think I might need to fix that. There's a bug to work on there with the damage output. Carcano and the Soviet receiver are part of the Munitions additional ammos add-on. The vanilla 50 caliber receiver has actually been replaced with the 30-06 advanced receiver. The vanilla 50 cal, and as you can see, it also has a little shot, but it's a much smaller one. And then for the calibrated ones, also has like an extra shot there, which is a nif bashed from the combat rifle suppressor. I kind of rotated it so the little like text written on it is hidden underneath the stock, so you don't see that. But the hunting rifle and the pipe guns are the only ones that I've done like any kind of mesh edits aside from the revolvers. But anyways, the vanilla 50 cal receiver is essentially just an advanced receiver with that 50 cal rechamber, but I've changed that to use 30-06, and then the 50 cal ultra heavy does even more damage than the vanilla 50 cal receiver, but it's heavier, slower, and smaller magazine capacity. This is with like no perks and no like magazines or anything. This is like a level 3 character. Pipe revolver, similar kind of things with the 44 revolver. It's got the ultra heavy with the longer shot there. It's got the 410 bore snake shot. The vanilla assault rifle doesn't really get a whole lot of like differences. Like the calibrated and the armor piercing rechambers at 223. The rapid automatic receiver will rechamber to 5mm, but does, you know, very low damage compared to anything else. It adds some super heavy and ultra heavy receivers. I will tweak this or lower the rate of fire on these a bit more, because the whole point of this is like bigger damage per shot but slower and smaller magazine capacity. So you'll definitely want to put the drum rack on it if you use any of these. One gun that's pretty interesting is the combat rifle. This one's got one of the heaviest sort of changes from vanilla feel, because in the vanilla game it uses 45, which to me always kind of feels weird, because this is clearly a very wide magazine designed for a rifle caliber round, since it's actually the same magazine mesh that the hunting rifle uses. And when I think 45, I think 45 ACP, because it's also used in the machine gun, which is modeled after a Thompson, which is chambered in 45 ACP. There's a lot of rechamber mods out there for this that change it to use 5.56. I decided I wanted to use a different approach because I'm taking some consideration with my munitions ballistics mod when I choose what calibers to use. So I intentionally wanted to use a caliber that is slower than the ammos used in the hunting rifles. So the hunting rifles is still technically a better weapon for like long range sniping, because the calibers I chose for this, for the most part, are around 30% slower than the bullets used in the hunting rifle. So the new default standard is 30 carbine, you know, like the old M1 carbine. And then the powerful and advanced will rechamber to 4440, so a little bit, which is a little bit bigger than like a standard 44 Magnum. And then for there, and if you want to use 5.56, there is 5.56 with the armor-piercing receivers. I kind of reserved 5.56 for the armor-piercing one, since 5.56 is generally much better armor penetration performance than at 30 carbine or 4440. And then the vanilla 38 receiver, I turned into 45, just so if you still want to use 45 in this thing, you can. If you use this mod with munitions ballistics, 45 is actually one of the slowest bullets in the game, because 45 ACP is a relatively slow bullet. So the 30 carbine that is standard in this is actually like 45 to 50% faster bullet speed than a 45, but still about 30% slower than the rifle caliber rounds that you'll find in the assault rifle or the hunting rifle. If you are using munitions additional ammos with the next update for that, I know Pizza Splunker is adding 4.58 SOCOM and 50 Beowulf ammo, and there will be receivers to use that, super heavy and ultra heavy. It will also reduce the ammo capacity. I plan on having those reduce the ammo capacity with standard mag from 20 to 12. So much lower magazine capacity, much lower rate of fire, heavier, but they will do considerably more damage. I plan on having the 4.58 do slightly less damage than the 50 Beowulf, but with an additional, like, crit hit bonus. So, might be slightly better for you VATS players to use the 4.58 than the 50 Beowulf. We look over at the submachine gun. Might as well, another 45. We have the 22 caliber ultra light frame receiver. The standard ultra light frame receiver is rechambered to, actually I don't even think, no, this isn't even vanilla. I added the light frame and heavy frame variants, I think. Actually, I didn't even add a heavy frame yet, but I added a light frame, which rechambers to 9mm. The vanilla rapid receiver 40, the armor piercing uses 40 instead of 45. Yeah, vanilla 10mm. So this one has some fun stuff in it. We got Magnum receivers with the full hand guard instead of like the normal finger grip. Armor piercing receivers, these will probably be changed to use 5.7 with munitions 1.2. So depending on whether Munitions 1.2 releases before I release this mod, that might change. The light frame uses 9mm, air trigger is 9mm. I specifically chose not to include 45 caliber on this weapon because of the true damage mod. Because I guess it's kind of understandable, but with true damage, it basically, what that mod does is it nerfs all the weapon damage by like 90% and then applies a damage value to the ammunition itself. And with the munitions patch for true damage, it actually gives the 10mm more damage than a 45, despite the fact that 45 is a larger diameter bullet than 10mm. Vanilla 10mm, I kind of think of it as the 10x25 auto. So it's a smaller diameter, but slightly longer casing than 45, so typically the way I like to balance those is give 45 higher damage, but shorter range than the 10 mil. But if you use true damage, which this mod will be designed to work well with true damage, 10 mil does more damage than 45, so I didn't want to, put 45 on the advanced receiver and then people who use true damage get less damage with it. It just seems silly, so I'm intentionally choosing not to put 10mm on and 45 on the same weapon. Also the same with 9mm, because for whatever reason, true damage gave 9mm more damage than 45, which doesn't make sense, because 45 is just bigger in both diameter and length than a 9mm. If you use the Munitions ballistics patch for true damage, I have rebalanced most of the ammo, so 9mm does... So I've kind of swapped the damage values of 9mm and 45. So 45 does do more damage than 9mm with my Munitions ballistic patch for true damage, but 10mm still does slightly more damage than 45. I want to allow people to use this mod without Munitions ballistics, even though, personally, it works best with Munitions ballistics, because I kept the ballistics in mind with how I balance some of these. I guess moving on to the last two weapons I have to talk about, the double barrel, the light frame receiver, the calibrated receiver, the hair triggers, will rechamber it to 20 gauge from 12, and I've added a 410 board super light frame receiver. So this will spawn early game. I might tweak the minimum level for the light frame so it spawns a few levels earlier, so you get like the standard light frame in 20 gauge kind of early on. Similar thing, the light frame calibrated. The armor piercing receivers also use 20 gauge. And then I've added the extra super light frame. I might add a super light automatic receiver as well. That way you can, just row tons of 410 because you get like a plus 20% ammo capacity when you use 410. And that's what I have for the vanilla weapons. I still need to work on the DLC weapons, the lever action rating rifle and the nuclear wheeled AK. I do have plenty of plans for those, but that's what I have in store for this mod so far. I have more like ideas and plans. There's going to be more stuff for these weapons, like what I've done with the pipe guns, where there's like slightly different variants of the receiver mesh for the different calibers. I want to bring that to more weapons. I've already kind of done that with the hunting rifle. Where'd it go? With the heavy frames, and then like the powerful frames and the calibrated ones. And obviously I still got a lot of balancing to do. I need to obviously balance the crafting requirements for them. Finish up TMAA add-ons, and there's still plenty of work to do, but this is what I have done on it so far. I'm sorry if this feels very rambly. I didn't bother to write a script for this. I probably should next time. Keep my thoughts a bit more organized. That is what I wanted to show you guys today.